Hello, this is Rick Tobin again with some hints for survival and information about keeping yourself safe during certain serious events. This is going to be a short, intense discussion this time about something you've probably been misinformed about. It wasn't that someone lied to you necessarily, but they didn't know what they were talking about, and that's radiation pills. For those of you who've stocked up in case there was a nuclear war, you probably, for some reason, got these right here. You got these potassium iodide tablets. They're little white tablets that you can taste. They're called Ki by most of us who've had chemistry background. Now, Ki is valuable for one particular purpose after there's been a nuclear explosion. If you're caught in fallout, you do not want to stay in the fallout long. If you are caught in it and you ingest potassium iodide ahead of time, just before you get the fallout on you, you may be protected to a certain degree. But if you've gotten the fallout on you for a long period of time and you haven't taken potassium iodide within the first hour or two, you may be risking your thyroid. Your thyroid is a butterfly-shaped organ right here, gland in the neck. And to be blunt, without it, you die. Now, I know you're saying, well, wait a minute, I had a relative who was treated with radioactive iodine for nodules on their thyroid, and there was no problem. That was done in a hospital, that was done with the doctor, that was done with controls and with the correct medications and use of radioactive iodine. Yes, it was radioactive and it passed out of the body and did its job, but it still created radiation while it was passing through. And there are side effects. Now, if you have a complete loss of the thyroid because of cancer and so forth, you take a huge dose of radioiodine and the thyroid is basically going to die. And for the rest of your life, you have to take appropriate medications to make up for what the thyroid was doing, because without that, you will not make it. That's why taking potassium iodide when there's fallout in the area is so important. Now, you could get radioactive iodine in you through ingestion, you eat something, or inhalation, you breathe it in, the fallout, or through wounds on your body, which especially burns could be an issue if you're in the burn area, the special heat coming off of the nuclear weapon. I'm going to tell you something now you're not going to like, but you need to know this. For those of you who are in an area where you've been burned severely by an atomic weapon going off, but you survived, if you get even a reasonable amount of whole body radiation, you're not going to make it. They learned that from Chernobyl. It really changes the outcomes. So taking potassium iodide only works, I repeat this, only works for uptake of iodine. It's basically floods the thyroid and keeps radioactive iodine from settling into the thyroid. If you ingest it, it's still going to go through your body, the radioactive iodine, and it's still radioactive and it's going to cause other damage as it goes through. There is no pill to prevent your exposure from radiation, from radionuclides, from an atomic weapon. There are also other elements, very serious radioactive elements that are going to be in the fallout. Things like americium, cesium, strontium, and others. And a lot of these have nothing to do with potassium iodide. They will simply settle in other parts of the body, and especially in the bones, which they will, if you've had enough of them, didn't get the fallout off of you in time and you had it on you too long. If you've taken enough of them in your body, they will kill the bones, which gets rid of your blood and all your plasma production, and basically you will not survive. It'll be very painful also. So what I'm telling you is, and this is a very big warning, you've heard misinformation about potassium iodide, these little tablets, for a long time. You cannot take liquid iodine from your medicine cabinet to get the same effect. That's dangerous and you can poison yourself. That happened to people after Chernobyl because they had misinformation. So now, after hearing that cheery news, you're probably saying, well, what am I supposed to do if there's fallout? You get it off of your body and your clothes as soon as possible. And the longer you leave it on you, the more serious and the precipitous your health will be. Now, some of you have asked, do we have nuclear war coming? I've told you by my perception and my experience, no. And I don't think Mr. P in Russia is going to drop a tactical one either, because even though they're for a small area, and I don't want to get into all the things that how tactical nukes work and so forth, there's still going to be some fallout. And the wind goes from west to east. And I'll tell you what, the last thing the Russian people will put up with is suddenly getting dosed because of a crazy man. There are other reasons too, I believe there won't be a nuclear exchange, but that's outside of this discussion. The bottom line also is time, distance, and shielding, which you'll learn more about. You can look it up in other YouTubes and so forth, but you basically want to be away from radiation as soon as possible. You want to put something between you and it, hopefully a lot of steel or underground, and you want to be in a place where you don't have to inhale it or keep it on your body. And basically, if you can keep yourself cleaned off and so forth as soon as possible, keep out of the contamination, you have a better chance. Now, I know some of you are going to write and say, well, where can I be safe, if there's a nuclear war and so forth. And I know you've read crazy things online like, hey, West Texas is safe and Oregon and maybe Maine. And let me tell you something. If there was a full-scale nuclear war, there is no safe place unless Elon Musk starts using his Bohr technology to start building underground cities like some of the ancients did many thousands of years ago, deep underground, and put some kind of a ventilation system with a HEPA to keep all of the contamination out. No, the surface will not be safe. And for those of you who say, oh, I'll go underwater. Let me tell you, if you're in the area where there is the pulse that comes from the atomic weapon, and there is a very strong pressure wave that comes. If you're underwater when that pressure wave hits you, you're in worse shape than if you were out in the air. It will just crush your little body like a salamander. So I just want to tell you, if someone's telling you, I know where the safe place is after nuclear war, they are living in fantasy land. Do everything you can through actions, prayer, and good planning and thoughts. Hopefully, we will never see one of these in our lifetime. You don't want to be in those situations, and there is no pill that will keep you from being harmed by atomic radiation fallout. That is a lie. And whoever told you that should have their hands spanked. They're the same ones who told you probably to hide under your desk like little turtles during the civil defense days of the 1960s. No. Let's stop the wars from happening. That's where the right protection is and the best protection. That's all I have to say on this. I know that's more serious than I usually get into on some of these things. But if you thought there was a radiation pill out there, and by the way, I'm going to stop this for a second. There is something you can take that only a doctor can give you, only a physician, and it'll be very limited after a nuclear strike. After a nuclear strike, and that's something called DTPA. And I'll spell it. I'll call it out for you. It's diethylene triamine pentacetate. I love it. Even as a former chemist, it's a hard one to cover. Let's just say, because of my extensive nuclear background, I may have encountered someone who was perhaps exposed to heavy metals that were radioactive and was exposed to this treatment. And they'll tell you, oh, yes, it'll take out these heavy metals and clear your body from them and so forth. That's probably not going to happen after nuclear war. There isn't going to be enough doctors or this material around to do this. DPTA is pretty rare and a lot of places don't carry it. But the side effects are horrible. And if you take this, you got to take a lot of magnesium and zinc and other things because it sucks the metals right out of your body that you need to live on. So don't think that you're going to go and take DPTA and get rid of your cesium and americium and strontium. There's nobody who's going to be able to do that for you. So if you hear from somebody else, they go, oh, yes, I'm going to get DPTA. Baloney. That's a bunch of bandini. So again, pray for peace, do the right things, Get things in order that will keep you out of harm's way if possible. And remember, clean yourself off as soon as possible and get the fallout off you. That's your best option. And protect your thyroid within an hour or two with the KI. The DPTA I talked about, it's the same thing. Within hours, you need it. And after a day or two, it's less effective. It might take some out, but you're going to get fried with the radiation if all that stuff's in your body. There's no silver bullet. It doesn't exist. Well, that's a little serious. And I care about all of you. I don't want you harmed, but you need to know the truth. Thanks a lot for listening in. And hopefully there will be some other hints that are a little lighter in nature coming up in this series on survival and emergency management and planning for you. Take care.